Alrighty. Hey, well, thank you everyone who has logged in today, and a massive thank you to Barbara again for her time. Super excited about today's theme being the circular economy. For introduction, for anyone that's new to the Lunch and Learns, I'm Ali Hopwood from Farmer Pack. I also chair the Environment Committee at Plastics NZ, and thrilled to be hosting this Lunch and Learn on behalf of the Environment Committee with Barbara from Thinkstep. So yeah, thank you so much, Barbara, and I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
So, circular economy today. I recognize a lot of the names because I either have actually met you or you might have been in the previous sessions. I find that quite an ironic image. That's why I've put it up there. It's made out of packaging of corned beef. So that I thought it's almost circular economy, although it actually is only just really recycling of packaging materials. And circular economy is so much more than recycling, but I still quite like the image, so I thought I'd include it. What we really do, it remains to be that, and even more importantly in the circular economy, is that middle bit. That all the different aspects of doing sustainability in an organization just really link together when you think circular economy. Because there are so many different drivers, and I meant to put up a poll, but I didn't. So maybe some of you might want to put in the chat, what are the key drivers in your organizations for circular economy? And we're a small enough group to actually just do that in the chat and see what comes up. So maybe I'll just give you a minute to put up in the chat on what are key drivers for circular economy in your organization. Customer needs, the right thing for humanity, economic benefits and clients, so responsibility, more efficient appliances, sustainable design, end of life. And that is almost what I expected. There are a lot of different drivers. So there is material utilization, which is keep waste from landfills. Someone else said doing the right thing for humanity, economic benefits, end of life. So those are the topics we want to address. And then some of the other ones are and influence the design. So we've got both ends. We've got end of life drivers, but also influence design. And that I think is exactly what it needs to be. We can't just have circular economy looking at how do we reuse resources at end of life or at end of first life, but we actually need to start right at the beginning. And what is also interesting to see in your comments, it's customers, it's a business wanting to do the right thing, it's staff wanting the right thing. So lots of different drivers. And that is also why circular economy is such a multifaceted topic, really. If we look at different drivers from work that we've do with clients, it's all those drivers can be important. Might not be the initial, oh, let's focus on circular economy, but once an organization has started, they realize we can actually relate it back to climate change or to all those environmental topics, toxicity. It has to do, someone mentioned humanity, it also has to do with fair working conditions. Because if we really take the circular economy serious, we look at the full supply chain. That means we understand where the materials come from, how have they been sourced, ethical sourcing, all that plays a role. And then if we go around here to the other side, regenerative systems, that would have to do with renewable materials. Because a renewable material, you could argue, is circular because it just can go back to nature, but can it, and what impacts does it have? Does it come really from a regenerative source, or does it come from a monoculture that really is not all that sustainable. It might be a renewable material because it can grow again, but might not really be a sustainable product. Saying some monocultures can really be sustainable, so don't get me wrong, but there are all those different aspects that really come together when we want to look at a true circular economy that goes beyond, yes, we recycle, so therefore we contribute to a circular economy. That's just not really enough anymore. What it really is, and I quote Michael Braungart here, is that what we need to do is to really do more good rather than less harm. If we have less waste to landfill, if we have fewer carbon emissions, if we have less pollution into our rivers, it still means we are wasting some resources that go to landfill. We still have emissions, carbon emissions, we still have some pollution in our rivers. And I mean, who says that any of that is actually acceptable? So what we need to do is to actually move to doing more good into those regenerative systems. And that is why all those drivers that you've listed in the chat actually are relevant, and all those topics need to be addressed. And in order to do that properly in an organization, we try to differentiate in a way between just circularity, which is sort of your recycling aspect of circular economy. It is to have less virgin materials and less waste, basically your recycling story, versus a circular economy, which delivers also economic benefits, which has broader environmental benefits as well as social benefits, because you need everything for a whole economy. And let's just make that economy circular. And that is, I think, where it's really interesting wording, where we differentiate between just circularity and a circular economy. If we look at the hierarchy here, a linear economy is really anything that has to do still with landfill or even incineration if we don't use any of the energy coming out of it. Then when we start doing energy recovery, it's better, not great yet, but it is really moving into the more good category up here. Then recycling, and that's sort of your usual hierarchy that everyone would be familiar with, but coupling it with the economy. So to make sure that any of the initiatives, any of the steps that we move up on the left-hand side here will also help us to improve environment, equity, and the economic side of things. So we really do want to see those two in balance and not as separate topics. The real value comes in when we look at the value of energy coming in, the value of materials, but then the installed value is where it really becomes interesting. I think my colleague Jim Godin, who is our circular economy specialist, he told me that the actual value, like just the materials of an iPhone, is about $2. But as soon as you have all the little parts of it, it goes up significantly. So if we were able to reuse components rather than just the materials, we retain a lot of that value. Because a lot of the value add is in manufacturing and designing things, even if it is just the components of a phone, say. That is really where that right to repair that's coming in the US and in Europe really has a lot of traction for a circular economy, because it is about retaining also the economic value of the components rather than just being able to strip it all back and put it into recycling schemes. You would probably all be familiar with the butterfly diagram from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And it is those inner circles where the real value is captured. And that is in the repair and in the sharing economy, that we actually have to produce less in the first place. What is interesting, and it's not on that screenshot of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's butterfly diagram, but I've mentioned Michael Braungart before, who's the one of the co-authors of this book, Cradle to Cradle. And what is really interesting, it's actually a really good read. I recommend it to everyone. It's that the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is widely known for being the ones who really push the circular economy. And everyone sort of looking into circular economy would have seen the butterfly diagram and go, oh yeah, that's from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. The fine print that is there is that this is based on the principles of William McDonough and Michael Braungart. So the Ellen MacArthur Foundation haven't invented that. They just made it popular and they push out the word. So if you want to go back to the truth and the source, this is the book to read. I can circulate that later as well. But it's really about those inner circles of capturing the value. And now, how do we actually measure we're doing that? And then it's a good old, if we don't measure, we can't improve. So we really need to start at the design. We need to understand what are those benefits and how circular is a particular product or material really. And if we don't really know what we're looking for, so if we don't know which of those drivers, then we can use a lot of different tools because they get us there. But we first need to figure out where to. And I've just picked up 2 tools here. And the one is life cycle assessment that I usually talk about a lot and will do in a couple of weeks' time. But life cycle assessment, and as much as I like it, really helps us to be less bad because it identifies where are our environmental hotspots and where can we improve, where can we reduce the environmental impact. It doesn't really tell us where can we be a lot better and get into regenerative thinking. And that is where the cradle to cradle thinking comes in, because it also cradle to cradle goes into social aspects, it goes into circularity and material health, it covers a whole lot more topics. So to me, it's a combination of those tools that really will help us to make good decisions for a circular economy. You saw that one here before, the circular economy, the environmental aspects, social aspects, material health, the economic aspects, how regenerative are we, and the material reutilization aspect. But really, that is your circular part, whereas all the other bits come in for a circular economy. And those are the tools that we would generally use to make progress in those different areas. So for the environment part, it's life cycle assessment. But for social fairness and material health, it's really looking into your supply chain. Where do all the materials come from? And then how do we structure a responsible procurement strategy around that? Economics, looking at the full life cycle costing, and MCI stands for the Material Circularity Indicator. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. That really calculates how circular is a product or a material. And then in order to tell the story, you can turn your LCA into an environmental product declaration, or you can go for cradle to cradle certification to actually talk about, have a certification for external communication that you can really use well. So in the inner circle here, we've got the what tools can I use to achieve it? And then on the outer circle, you've got the how can I communicate what we've done? And that is sort of our view on how to tackle a circular economy, because you can do all the greatest things if you can't communicate them. Still doing something good, but if you want to really benefit to your business as well, you want to communicate what you're doing. I'll go into the circular indicator a little more. That has been published by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, but my colleague Jim was one of the ones who helped them actually develop that methodology. And I've mentioned Jim now twice, and you ask, well, why do I talk about circular economy if we've got Jim on the team? And that's absolutely right. Jim should be speaking here, but he's waiting for a visa and still in the UK. So it's a rather unsociable time for him, and that's why I'm stepping in. But if someone would want to reach out to Jim for further information, please let me know, and I'll introduce you by email. So the circularity indicator looks at a whole range of different aspects. It looks at the actual material, how much is reused, how much is remanufactured, how much comes from recycling, what is the regenerative content, and how much of it is actually virgin material. It also looks at the lifetime of a product. The longer it lasts, the better. And it looks at what can happen to those materials after the first end of life. How much can go into recycling? How much can go into composting? And out of all of those, you can calculate an index for circularity on a scale of 1 to 0. So 0 would be a completely linear system, and 1 would be a fully circular system, taking all those different indicators into account. And while that slide looked like a lot of data used, it's not actually that hard. And it's a really good indication on how far along on your circular economy journey are you. So we use that quite a lot in addition to LCA studies to help our clients understand how circular are their products really. Because then you can actually measure how circular you are, and you can then improve by really addressing all those different aspects that make up the circularity of the product. So it really is, it looks a bit like this. We combine it often, your circularity indicator, and on the other axis, we quite often put the carbon footprint, so that you actually have two measures and can then start optimizing your products. So you can have the circularity indicator and the carbon footprint. Sometimes you put material cost on the other axis as well. So you really have a number of different ways to understand what can you improve without having a trade-off, or how much of a trade-off are you willing to take in order to move up the circularity. That was a real quick run through one of the tools for circular economy. And I think the main thing really is to start thinking about circular economy versus just circularity, because it does cover a lot of those other aspects as well.
Barbara, just a couple of questions here. Where should a business in the plastics industry start in terms of making progress towards advancing the circular economy?
Well, I really think there are quite a few opportunities. If we look back to the different data aspects, all of those will drive circularity. So if we can have a look at how well can a product be recycled, then also looking at how well can it really be recycled, starting to make a push for better infrastructure, for being able to actually take those products back and taking responsibility beyond we've delivered the product. That is, I think, where circularity really will start. and that I think is key for the plastics industry, because it's a valuable materials, and what we need to make sure is that we can retain the value of those materials and put them back into another cycle.
And just sort of leading on from that, is how long do you think it would take before New Zealand really embraces that circular economy?
I really don't know. I can only say that, like in many other areas, I think it's industry pushing it. And that's the same in the carbon space. I think industry is well ahead of government requirements in pushing the carbon agenda, and I can't see why that would be different in the circular economy agenda. Actually, what we're seeing is that businesses are really taking it seriously. And I think that's I think the one thing that would be good is to have that right of repair, but it's actually happening a bit. So there are more and more things that can be repaired, and that I think is really key for a circular economy.
How do you think the circular economy balances against climate change issues? What are the aspects like that?
Yeah, I think they can go hand in hand, because a lot of what we achieve in with a circular economy would also have the potential to reduce carbon emissions. And yes. I really don't see them one or the other. I think they're both equally important.
Okay, no, fantastic. And what countries in the world do you think are obvious exemplars in adopting circular economy principles, across all parts of their systems? Who are the hero countries?
I would have thought some of the European countries. I'm always a little biased and would say that Germany is far ahead, but I really don't know which of the European countries would be furthest ahead. But I do think that the EU Green Deal helps as well. So it's that combination of industry doing it as well as some regulations. I can see here is a question as well. How are these tools available to us in industry? Very available. So the circularity indicator, I think there is good documentation on the Ellen MacArthur website. We can help with doing it as well. We're thinking of doing a very simple version, like a demo version, and have that available for people to get familiar with on our website. But we're still working on that sort of free taster version. It's an Excel document that we use to create. What we do often is, for a particular company, would tailor the circular indicator calculator so that it actually has your materials in there, and then we can make that available to you.
Fantastic. That would be great. And obviously within that, if anyone has any additional questions, Sandy Bottle from Circular Connect is available as well. Do you offer a service at same with Carbon Calculator? Yeah, look, I'm sure that we can. Yes. I'm sure we can circulate some of that information as well. It looks like we're sort of at time. So that was a fantastic run through, Barbara. Yeah, it was great to look at some of those other aspects of a circular economy, and start a conversation around those as well. Just see, I've got one more thing in. Oh, how do I download the recording? That's a question from someone.
Well, I don't know, I think we might have not even sent you the link for the previous recording. That is because our helper doing the slide editing of it is a student, and I think was too busy studying, but we should have the previous two recordings and this one to you very shortly.
Fantastic. No, that sounds great. We can organise for that to be circulated amongst the attendees. Yep. Okay, so it looks like we're at time. Thank you so much for your time today, Barbara. Really, really appreciate it. And I think we're all really looking forward to the next Lunch and Learn as well. Big thank you, Barbara. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Cool. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Bye.